We'll see through the illusions of love to find the treasure in being forever friends. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Forever Friends Academy. It is so good to be on with you guys again. Hopefully, you guys are having a really good weekend. It's been a snowy and relaxing weekend where I live. Hopefully, if I have anyone online who also experienced a snowstorm this weekend, hopefully you were warm, snuggled up with your family, safe, etc. So, of course, you know the drill for those who have come to Forever Friends Academy live chat before. I'm going to wait for some of you guys, beautiful people, to come on with me. And while I wait, of course, let me introduce myself. For any of the newcomers, my name is Sharla Kornegay, aka Sharla K. I am an author, a recording artist, creator, and founder of Interask Coaching and Forever Friends Academy. This is my show called Forever Friends Academy. I do a live chat Q&A on Thursdays, and on Sundays it's a little different. We do what I like to call relationship Sunday scenarios. The structure of the show is that I usually pop out a quote to you. That's what the Q&A stands for. It's a little bit different from the normal Q&As that I'm sure that you guys are used to maybe partaking in. I will, though, always leave space to get your feedback as well as answer any questions that might not be pertaining to tonight's topic. So the structure of the show is that I present to you a quote, and you guys let me know if you feel like it's a quote one that resonates with you, to has some kind of truthful principle in it, and hopefully, maybe, possibly, you can apply it to your relationships. And then second, the Q also stands for a question that I usually present. Tonight is Sunday scenarios, so I will present the question in the form of a scenario, a relationship scenario that I present to you guys, and you guys let me know what your thoughts are on it. And of course, we answer that question pulling from it some relationship principles that we can use, fundamental relationship principles that we can use to apply to your own personal, relationship scenarios or situations or circumstances that might come up in your relationship. So that is the rundown of the show. And while I'm waiting to see if I get some of you guys on with me, I don't want to give you the quote just yet, just because I want to give some time. So I figured do something like a little icebreaker, ask you something that's, hopefully interesting. Hopefully enough that you will want to throw some answers back to me. So I figured, just to kind of top it off and have an icebreaker, my question to you, or my request rather, is share with me something that you find interesting about yourself, but you also feel like it's cool. So something that is interesting about yourself, but you also feel like it's cool. Hey, Justin, how are you? You haven't missed much. I'm at the top of the podcast right now. And feel free. I didn't pop out tonight's question, but I was just waiting to get more people on with me. And let me make sure I put that on silent mode. I was just waiting to get some more people on with me. So feel free to answer my question that I just popped out. It's not the question of the night, but it's just a question, icebreaker. Let's call it icebreaker. So the question is, I would love to know something that is interesting about you, but that you also feel is cool. Something interesting about you that you also feel is something that I guess other people would find cool, or maybe you just find that is cool about yourself. So while I'm waiting to see if I get some responses from you guys, I will let you know what I find interesting about myself and what I find to be cool. You have people who, and I have family members and friends who are like this, like how they look. They have just this signature look about them. They just, like If you saw them in elementary school, if you see them in high school, if you see them in college, through all the stages, even up until their adulthood right now, they just, their face, right? You can spot them from a mile away. Well, I'm not like that. I have, I don't know. I feel like my face kind of metamorphs with the hairstyles that I have, or I can just, if I wear my hair curly or straight or just a different hairstyle, braids, my face, just looks different. And I find it's interesting and I think it's cool. I remember when Ben and I were in high school and we would go out and I'd overdress. I always overdress. I guess I still do that now. I'd overdress and I'd get, ready. And I remember, I'd always try to like change it up. And he was like, I feel like I'm, dating different people, even though I'm just dating you, because I would look different, with each hairstyle that I change into. So I think that's an interesting, cool thing about me. And I'm sure when people look, like maybe my high school, people who have known me from high school, maybe they're like, did she have like surgery or something? I don't think it's that drastic. I'm going to have to call some of them, but I've never had surgery at all on anything. It's organic bodies and lives matter. So I haven't had anything like that, but I just have one of those faces. I don't know. It just changes. I'm sure if you look through my feed, whether you're on IG or Facebook, probably like, is that the same girl? I don't know. But I think that's what's interesting and kind of cool about me, because you kind of, like he said, you kind of get to feel like he's with different people, but you're just with this one solid person. So that's my interesting, I don't know, what do you call it? I wouldn't say it's a fact. Well, I guess it is a fact about me. It's my opinion, I guess. But people have also said it to me, like, you do look different when you change things up. So I think that's pretty cool. So that's my interesting little icebreaker fun fact. Hey, boo, how are you? Melodic Bells, how are you, darling? So I asked a question. It's not the question for tonight, because tonight is Relationship Sunday Scenarios. I was just waiting to get more of you beautiful people on with me. So this is like an icebreaker. Just tell me something that is interesting about yourself, but you also think it's cool. So I was just telling them that I think what's interesting about myself is that I can change up a hairstyle and people will be like, is that the same person? So I think it's cool. It's nice. It's definitely good for, especially the singing, right? As a recording artist and the singing aspects and performance, it's great, right? To be able to have that. So that's but I always tell you one thing, if you do, after I done expose myself in this introduction, in this live part of the episode, and you do go through my feed just to be like, let me see. I always tell people, look at the eyes and look at the lips, and you'll be able to know, like, okay, yeah, that's still her. That's her. So that's how you can know, hey, how are you? Hi, Tiffany. I got some people on here. Tiffany says, LOL, I can relate to that and so appreciate it. We are versatile. Yeah, right? And I guess, no shade to any other woman, but I guess, Black women, right? We do change it up a lot. So I'm glad I'm not alone. Where Ben is the opposite. Anybody, they just know it's him. His face is just a stamp, But me, they're probably like, is that the same? Is that your same wife? No, probably not. Anyway, so that's my interesting fact about me and what I also feel like is pretty cool. So feel free to flood my feed and let me know what you think is fun and interesting about yourself. All right, but since I got some of you in here, I'm going to give you the actual question of the night, which is going to roll into our relationship scenario that I'm going to give you guys tonight. All right, so the question at the top, well, actually the quote first at the top of the podcast is, and you guys let me know, 1, if you think it's true, 2, if it resonates with you, and 3, do you think it's, I guess, a beneficial principle or mindset to have for you to kind of apply to your relationships and it'll be able to facilitate growth, right? So the quote goes like this. You cannot have love without truth, right? Where there is no truth, there is no love. Do you guys agree with that? Let me say it again. There is no love if there is no truth. Without truth, there is no love. Do you guys agree with that quote? Let me know. Think about it. Think about it. So I'm going to give you guys a moment, see if I get some responses, and I'll say it again just in case you're contemplating. You cannot have love without truth. Where there is no truth, there is no love. What are your thoughts? Ooh, Tiffany says, ooh, that's a good one. I thought so too. And I usually like to, put the author's name. This just came to my head, so I don't know if it's out there. So right now I'm the author until I go and Google it. See, I'm sure there's been many different versions, maybe that possibly other people have said it in different ways. So that is the quote for the top of the podcast tonight. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with it? Do you think it's true? Is it something that you feel like, because I always, for anyone new to the show tonight, I always say that I have two approaches when it comes to relationship coaching, and it is that there are fundamental principles that I believe that no matter what your relationship dynamic is, they are the foundational building blocks for any relationship to be able to thrive. I always say that I do not think that God, knowing that relationships are at the core of everything we do, would not leave us just up the creek, not right having some actual presets, some things that can ground us in it to be able to navigate this life. So I'm always going to introduce things that you can apply to your relationship that are good foundational tools that'll help you grow together in it. All right, so Tiffany says, I think that is true. However, I believe we can love our perception, what we know to be true. Very true. Let me read that profound statement that she just wrote. She said, I think that is true. However, I believe we can love our perception of what we know to be true. Isn't that the truth? So that's one of the things that you'll hear me echo all the time on the podcast, is that love has to be the loudest and the strongest voice in your relationship. And I always say, love is not a feeling, a transient feeling, because feelings are too transient to be considered love. Because for those of us who are believers, we know that God is love, and God is not transient at all. He's the infinite. So when we're talking about truth, it has to be where we're lining up, right, with the truth that echoes all throughout life. And so I love that, what Tiffany brought up, because that is very true. And I'll say that latter part that she wrote, because I think it's really great. She says, however, I believe we can love a perception of what we know to be true. And I think that's why it's great that we have conversations like this. And one of the reasons why I do the podcast and why I started doing the relationship coaching is because of that. And I love this quote. I also agree with Tiffany. I believe that this quote is true. And for that very reason, because there's love and there's illusions of love. I don't really believe there's a gray area in between, and when there is no actual fundamental truth, right, to ground the building of a relationship or the understanding of love in, then you automatically kind of flip to the other side of illusions of love. And so I think that's why it's important for us to have conversations like these and talk about what love is and what the character and what the nature of love looks like, because then it'll give us a good grounding. At least we're not perfect, so mistakes are written in the script already. It's written in the script already. But I do think that if we have a good understanding, or if we're even open and willing to say, okay, maybe I stepped into this, right? Maybe someone who has stepped into going, having a relationship, or feeling like they gave their heart to someone and maybe didn't get it reciprocated in the way that they thought that they should, they'll remain in maybe a closed off or guarded type of mindset, or heart posture position towards that area of life, without, right, considering that maybe I just didn't, it was what Tiffany wrote, that maybe it was a perception that I believed to be true. Maybe I navigated in this relationship in a way of what I thought love was, or this is how I thought that you support someone, or this is how I thought that you work interdependently with someone. If they don't take, right, or even have a glimpse of in their mind of giving a space or a moment to kind of accept that that's a possibility, then they'll always stay in that place, and they'll miss out on maybe future opportunities to build authentic relationships filled with true love and truth there. So thank you so much, Tiffany. That was excellent. Very, very excellent. Tiffany says true love is authentic, vulnerable, and transparent. Absolutely. And that's how I want to present it tonight. And I'm going to layer it in the scenario that we have tonight. So I'll wait, of course, if anybody else has any feedback on that quote. Feel free anytime that you pop in to give me the feedback, and I'll take a moment, of course, and read it, because I want to hear as many perspectives as possible. But while I have you guys on, I'm going to put out the scenario that we have that kind of coincides with that quote. And of course, there'll be a question in it, and we'll hopefully get to an answer and a resolve at the end. All right, so tonight's scenario, we have a couple, a man and a woman. They are married. They have been married for 10 years, right? And they are in a coaching session. Let's just say they're in a Forever Friends Academy coaching session to resolve something that just recently happened in their relationship. And so let's start with what happened, all right? So the husband, let's say he's an entrepreneur, he runs his own business, and he contracts clients. He's a subcontractor. He goes into places. Let's say, what should we make him do? Let's make him an architect. Yeah, I like that. Let's make him an architect, right? And so he goes into businesses, looks at plans and things like that. Let's say they want to renovate their buildings, etc., right? So that's what he does, his clientele. His wife, let's make her an interior designer. Let's make them a nice little tag team duo, right? Interior designer. And that's what they do. They don't have any children as of yet, right? And so he has a client that he is going to see, to have a meeting, learn, etc. He goes to the first meeting. It goes well. The client calls him back. The client is a woman, and she's a CEO of this company. And the second meeting that they have, the woman actually makes a pass at him, right? So the woman makes a pass at him, and he respectfully turns her down, right? He respectfully turns her down, says, this is just a professional situation. You're a nice person. I'm sure you'll find someone, but I am, a committed married man, right? So he shuts her down. It doesn't seem to interfere with the business that they have. He, however, does not go and tell his wife, and actually he consults some of his men friends, tells them what happened, and they basically tell him, majority of them tell him, do not tell your wife. Like, you did the right thing, you shut it down. You do not have to tell her. Do not give her any extra heartache than what's necessary. You just keep it moving, keep your house at peace, do whatever you need to do in business until the contract is up, right? Maybe only one friend tells him, like, I think you should be able to tell your wife. She should be able to understand. So because the scale was so weighted on the other side, he goes and with the other one and says, I'm not going to tell her. I'm going to keep the peace. Well, however, this is the age of the internet, and we can just just about find anybody that we want to, right? To look up and research who they are. So this CEO actually looks him up. Didn't really have to look him up. She really tries to find his wife, and she then messages the wife to tell her that, you have I just needed to tell you that you have a really, rare man in your life and husband in your life, telling her the scenario that, he respectfully turned her down. And as the way that she put it, she just wanted to let her know to be able to treasure him of how much, right, a gem he is, etc. I know, the audacity, right? Right, so that's the scenario. She finds out that way. And so, of course, she consults her husband, tells her husband what happened. He then, basically she wants to know, is this true? Did this happen? And he's like, yes, it did happen. I didn't want to tell you because I had already handled it. The situation was already handled. I didn't really feel like bringing you into it. I didn't feel like it was necessary. I felt like, honestly, I was probably more so protecting your feelings by not telling you. And so she doesn't feel that way. Now it actually makes her feel like wondering how many other things you are hiding from me now that you didn't tell me that. She says, the wife says, I do, honor and I appreciate that you did, you did the right thing and you turned her down. But I want truth to be our language in our relationship, and I want you to be able to tell me anything or to have faith that I can process things and we can process things together. So that is the scenario. Husband feels like she's really overreacting and now feels like her saying the things that she is saying to him proves the whole point of why he did not want to say anything to her in the first place, because he feels like I did the right thing, but it feels like I'm still, being punished for doing the right thing. So that is the scenario, folks. Who do you, I guess, glean more to? Do you think that what he did in withholding the information from her, but handling it in the right manner, that it's okay? It was more so to protect the peace of the household. He didn't want her to feel like, okay, he has to continue, or that he is going to continue this job relationship with this client. He didn't want her to have to, I guess, insecurity, jealousy, or things to pop in and disturb the peace of the home? Or do you agree with the wife and say, although you handle this, I believe, and I trust that you handled this situation in the right way, now, because you withheld this from me, now it's actually doing the opposite of what you were trying to protect, because I'm wondering how many other things you felt that you needed to withhold from me because you thought you were protecting me. So what do you guys think? Oh, thank you. Oh, good night, Melodic. Thank you for joining me, loves. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, what do you guys think? So that's the scenario. Some good points on both ends. Let me know. Let me know who do you agree with? Which one you're leaning to more towards? Do you, think that the husband? Do you understand what the husband was doing? Do you think, what he's saying is right? Or do you agree with the wife that, yes, you handled the situation, but more importantly, I feel like we need to have a culture in our relationship where the truth is spoken no matter what. So this, when I was thinking about this scenario, it reminded me of a situation I used to go on Clubhouse during the pandemic when Clubhouse was this big thing. And, people would go on there. We'd have like these rooms and we'd, talk about different relationship topics and things like that. And I remember I had a gentleman come in and I forgot exactly the topic we were talking about, but it came around to, do women really, do they truly want the truth at all times? And he was saying no, they really don't. Because what about in instances like, if you tell you you ask your partner, you ask your husband, oh, did I get a little big, or do I look good in this outfit, etc. And he's like, I don't tell my wife. His wife wasn't on, but he said, I don't tell my wife. I'm not going to tell her that, maybe she doesn't, look good in that outfit, because it's going to cause more. It's going to cause more of a headache if I really tell her the truth. And I think he was saying, I don't know if it was his wife or we were just making up maybe a hypothetical scenario like tonight, or he presented like if my wife is working out and, she asks me, how do I look now? you know, and maybe she did lose something, but maybe not in the way that he could like identify it, maybe it wasn't obvious. He said, I wouldn't tell her no, because I would want her to continue on the journey that she's on, because she's on a journey to better herself. So if I told her no, he felt that it would be more counteracting the progress. So, yeah. So what are your thoughts? I mean, it's great that he handled it in the way that he did. And I thought about today's modern, society and how this could definitely be, right, a possible scenario, because the internet just makes so many things accessible, easily accessible, to be able to, right, connect. You'll be working with someone, but then they can like research. And so I thought of how very easily a situation like this can occur. So, yeah, that's the scenario. What are you guys? What are your thoughts? I'm going to wait and see if any other answers come in. Let me see if I missed any. Hey, April. Hey, love. How are you? I don't know if you heard this whole scenario, but that's what we are. I'm waiting to see if I get some answers from you guys. And for anyone new coming in, I'm trying to figure out how I can just summarize this really quickly. There's a husband. He's a subcontractor. He's entrepreneur. He basically has a client who makes a pass at him. He decides not to tell his wife. He does handle it and shut it down respectfully. However, he does not tell his wife because he just kind of, in his own words, he wants to keep the peace. He wants to protect her peace. He does not want to aggravate things that don't need to be aggravated. However, the client does somehow find his wife, reaches out to her and presents it in the way that you have a rare gem in your husband, and lets her know the scenario and that he did respectfully turn it down, and she just wanted to actually, in her perspective, I guess, let her know. Anyway, but she then, of course, confronts her husband to want to find out if this is something that happened. Is it true? And then he does tell her, yes, it did happen. However, I didn't tell you for this reason. Okay? And so they are now in a coaching session because they need a third party kind of resolve this issue. And so the wife feels like the truth should be our language no matter what, and that if it is something that happened, especially something like that, you should be able to present it to me and trust that I will process it in the best way. He feels like it's not necessary if I've handled it and there's no need, and I wanted to continue to make sure that I could complete that contract without feeling like I was bringing any unnecessary hurt or harm your way. All right, so feel free to let me know who you agree with. All right, so I've got an answer. Tiffany says, well, I do see where the husband was coming from with handling it, and I can appreciate his position. I can also see the wife's perspective, especially the fact that the woman was so bold. I know, right? She was so bold. I was thinking about this. I was like, Charlie, you could write for Tyler Perry. This is scandalous. All right. I can also see the wife's perspective, especially the fact that the woman was so bold as to reach out to her. It should have not come as a surprise that her husband was hit on. I think, though, instead of assuming there may have other instances like this one, she could have asked that they establish sharing all the things, a standard in their relationship as to not ever be blindsided. That's really good. That's really good, Tiffany. Yeah, that's really good. And she didn't, well, I guess, I don't know. I love what you said, instead of assuming that there were other things that he was hiding. I don't know if she was assuming it, if she's saying, I'm wondering. It makes me wonder if there are other things. But I guess that is assuming. It's not like she's saying flat out there isn't. Yeah, I guess it's just she's expressing that now it makes her wonder if there are any other things that he's withheld from her. But I love what you said, though, instead of communicating it in that way, that it should have been less established from this point on, sharing all things, a standard in the relationship as to not ever be blindsided. Yeah, absolutely. You're a great therapist, Tiffany. Yeah. And she said, right, the wandering can be a slippery slope. Absolutely. And then that's why I kind of, I understood the space that the husband was coming from, because, it's true. Even when I was bringing up that example when we were on Clubhouse, when the gentleman said, about his wife, and it's like, do women really want the truth? Because if my wife asks me certain things, he said oftentimes, he'll tell a little, I don't know who made this term up anyway, little white lie. Why is the little white lie? I don't understand that, but that's another conversation. But he said, he'll tell, not, I guess, withhold information or not exactly tell the truth. And he felt like that is the best way to protect her. And, in that conversation, as well as in this one, I don't think it serves any good in the relationship, because I think when someone is vulnerable enough and direct enough to tell you what is really going on and the truth, it means that they have faith in you. It really does. Have you ever heard of someone, no, I'll do this one because I'm sure many of you probably have heard this, where they say, they'll be talking to men and they'll say, be happy that your wife or your girlfriend or your woman is talking to you, is quote unquote, maybe in his expression, nagging him or things like that, because that means she cares. She's showing up. She believes that there are certain things that might be going on in the relationship that she feels like those things can still be transformed. There is space for a change to occur. But the moment that woman goes silent, she has, right, left the building. She's even if she's physically there, she has left the building because she no longer has hope or faith that it's going to change. She is looking for the nearest exit, or building the nearest exit to leave. And in that same way, I think that when we withhold information, whether it's lying by omission or quote unquote telling a little white lie because we think that we're protecting our partners, I don't believe that any relationship that is strong, that has certain foundational tools to be able to withstand the test of time and change, that it does not need to have an environment where both or one person in the relationship feels like they have to walk on eggshells in the way that they communicate to their partner. Of course, yes, we should think about what we're saying. We should communicate in a way with understanding of your partner and try different methodologies, right, to convey certain messages that need to come across. But if you don't feel like you can say it, it's really shows a lack of faith and a lack of trust. And I think in this situation, on his part and the people who a part of his friends circle who guided him, saying, don't, he of course were maybe looking at one angle like, okay, let's keep the peace. Because once you say that, you automatically are like, okay, this is not going to go good. She is just going to continually either think about the fact that this lady made a pass at you, and it's just not going to go good. Whereas you can just handle the work and then you can go home and the peace be at your home, and it doesn't have to, those two worlds don't have to meet. But in a scenario like this, right, where there are things that can come into the light, and not by the way of you telling it truthfully and directly, it just, right, it hits low and it causes more problems in the relationship. So I absolutely agree with Tiffany as far as, from this point on, if they are in the coaching session and the therapist is there, the coach is there, that would definitely be the solution, right? Because the slippery slope, as Tiffany said, with wondering why will not help, right? It won't help. And the fact is that she when she confronted him, even though he didn't tell in the beginning, he did tell then, right? He did say, yes, this is what happened, and this is the reasoning as to why I decided not to tell you. But from this point on, let's establish an environment where the truth is our language before anything is spoken. I have a book, my first book that I ever wrote, called Life in Colors, a book of poetry, and there's a poem that I have in there called Truth. Truth is our language, and I put it in there because that's something that Ben says in our family a lot, that the truth is our language. And the poem basically says, before anyone learns a language, because we're in different countries, people learn different language, different dialects and things like that. But before any of those things, right, are learned, it should be established that the truth is going to be the culture and the language of the community, of the society, before teaching anything else. And I definitely think that is definitely true for relationships too. And I don't believe, to tie it into the quote that I presented in the beginning, that you can have love that is not, founded or grounded and established within the truth, right? Within the fundamental truths, not the truths that your personal truths. It has to be grounded on the fundamental truths of God, because those things don't waver, and those will allow us, right, to just be in a heart posture, in a position to be able to hear from God, so that we can then experience and have God kind of paint the canvas of how love truly, right, it unfolds and is reflected and expressed, and experience at its most optimal state here. So Tiffany says, and this scenario can be flipped. Yeah, absolutely. She might be the one being hit on. Absolutely. I wonder if the husband will want to know. That's a good scenario, Tiffany, right? Yeah, I know. I wonder if that's something. Thank you, Tiff. I'm going to put out, not necessarily a scenario. Well, I don't know, but I'll pose a question for when I have, because I don't know if any men are on here right now, but that's a great question to ask men if they would want to know, right? And how they would process that. And if she, acted in the same way or responded in the same way her husband did, would they be okay with that? That's great. Yeah. That's very true. I'm gonna have to put that in my little tool bag to do for another show because that's very true. That's very true. But I love what Tiffany said. I think because how else do you right? How else do we get to a point of resolving a scenario like that? One, it's already happened, right? So again, wondering why won't help. If there's other things, it won't, it will not provide a solution. I mean, I guess he can tell her no, but would she really wholeheartedly believe it if he has already withheld something? So all they can do is start from right now, right here and now. And I think on her end, if that's going to be the case, if that's going to be the case, that the truth is going to be our language, it has to be all the way around, right? It has to be all the way around. It reminds me, I was watching, what was I watching when I think I haven't finished it, but I had to, well, I didn't have to, but I did. I was doing my hair. And then everybody's been talking about this Cat Williams interview, recent interview. And so I was like, let me check it out because everyone's talking about it. I didn't get through the whole thing, but this scenario is reminding me at some point in the interview, he was talking about, and I forget the woman comedian's name that he had an interview on, she was a radio host. And I guess in his recap of what went on, she said he was going on for a particular thing, an award that he received, and they were only going to talk about that. But then when he got on the show, in his perspective or his angle of the story, she blindsided him and just asked him about all other things that weren't related. And the co-host said that, you really basically gave it to her, right? You went in on her, and he was like, she's a woman. Why would you do that? And he was like, oh no, you're not doing that, huh? Yes, it was Wanda Sykes. Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, it was Wanda Sykes. And the host was like, I know you're not doing that. You are not. You are not. They want equality. You are not going to say that I should have treated her differently because she was a woman. And in the interview, he was like, they want equality, but not all across the board, only in certain areas. And I was just like, whoa, but it made me think of, this scenario that, okay, well, I want you to tell me the truth, of course, in this scenario, but are you going to tell me the truth in other in other areas, or would you be happy with me just, lying to you, maybe about a dress that you're wearing, or that, does my shape look good in this, or, does this food taste good? Are we, is this going to be all across the board, and I will say that just on my personal end and my angle, before I married Ben, I had a pastor's wife that I went to, that I looked up to. And there was some things that I hadn't told Ben yet. And mind you, Ben is very upfront. Like when we started our friendship, okay, it wasn't even like, because we didn't have the whole typical boyfriend and girlfriend type of thing, because he just didn't believe in it. So we called ourselves Christian companions back then. It turned into forever friends now. But he wanted to see how we organically harmonized in the relationship. And he didn't want to put a title and expect the title to guide how we are supposed to act in a relationship, which when he broke it down, I was like, that makes so much sense. A lot of relationships are failing because they have this title and they believe that the title is supposed to tell them how to conduct themselves, but it's not that. It's your character. It's what you've worked on and what you haven't is what's going to, right, give you how you're going to navigate that relationship. So in a nutshell, we were elevating at this point to where, okay, I could, he had told me he was going to marry me very early on, but we had to go through, college and things like that. And so we were getting into that space, and I had asked her, basically, should I tell him this thing? It wasn't even really involving us as like, she was like, if it doesn't involve it now with you being your wife or you even being his girlfriend, it doesn't matter. You don't need to tell him. And I don't know, when she told me, I just was like, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel right when she told me, but she was a pastor wife, and I looked up to her, and hence why I came to her to kind of get the advice. And I just left that conversation thinking in my mind, like, okay, what kind of marriage do I want to have? Do I want to have a marriage that I can tell my husband any and everything, like all of it? He's got to be like Christ to me, and Christ knows everything about me, flaws, alls, flaws and all, weaknesses, strengths, and he still loves me. So I want Ben to be able to also do that. So I went against her counsel, and I told him everything. And I always admire the movie from Eminem called 8 Mile, because I thought it was so brilliant at the end, like the whole big climax scene when he's in his, final kind of like rap battle, and he basically just, curates a rap that tells everything about him, his and so it was so brilliant because he hid nothing. He was so full and transparent in his vulnerability that any weapon that the other rapper could use against him, he had already used it. So there was nothing else to say. And I thought, I think of my marriage in that way, and I think of our relationship in that way, because I don't want the devil to try to come and expose something, because my fear of keeping it hidden or things like that. I don't want anyone to be able to tell my husband anything about me. You know what I mean? That I haven't already laid it to him, and so that's what I decided to do. We've consistently from the beginning had a relationship like that, especially Ben. He's very forthright, and he was very like, I want to know everything. And I appreciate it. I didn't appreciate it then, because we were young, and even when he said that, you'd expect like, okay, well, you're young. What else can you tell? You don't really have that much to tell, but that wasn't the story of my life. I had been through a lot by the age of 15. So it was definitely very vulnerable to express those things, but I appreciate it now because, if not for anything, I know that he's going to tell me 1,000% the truth. And it is an honor, because it means he feels like you are filled with God's Spirit. You can be able to process this. I have faith that I can tell you this, and that right? Because I'm sure in the scenario that we put in today, that it possibly would be true, that especially since he continued the work relationship, that those things would come to his wife, right? That maybe there would be thoughts, why would not the devil use that to then try to not create a peaceful home or atmosphere for them? I'm sure that would come, right? But that's life as well for us, right? The challenges, the struggles, all of those are written in the script, but they're not written in the script absent of tools that God provides for us to be able to truly, right, decipher and lean to the truth, and know that no matter what it is, one, you can be able to appropriate and regulate and manage the emotions, and be able to team up and go through this together. Because I imagine if it went another way, and even if she did go through all those different processes, but was able to regulate those emotions, I think their relationship would probably, in bond, become stronger, just in the fact, right? I know if I was in that situation and he told me, because he believed that I could, he believed that I could be able to, one, believe him, two, trust, that I could regulate the false emotions that would come. And then we can double down, on our marriage. because someone tried to come in between it, especially for, as a wife, I always tell, I always tell the wives that I coach, never leave your position as the wife, as the queen, to fight from your position, right? If we're in a war, a king does not get off his throne to fight the war. He has people, right? Military people who fight that war for him. So sometimes, when situations like the scenario that we brought up come into play, that's what the insecurity and the jealousy will try to do, is to try to make you come out of your position and not fight in the right way, right? So imagine if he did tell her, right? I'm just putting myself in that scenario. Right? If Ben told me that, the first thing I'm doing, I am doubling down on everything. The good loving, the good cooking. I'm going to look top tier every day. Okay? I might just come to just a surprise visit with a nice lunch, dressed all nice. You know what I mean? Like, that you now we're fighting, right? Now we're teaming up together to let this person know, like, okay, you tried to come into something that God has destined and ordained here, but it's not going to work, So it possibly could have went that way, Hey, Ali, thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me. And thank you guys. What's that Mexico music? How are you? Oh my gosh, it's been such a long time that you popped in here. Well, I guess it's been a long time since I've been on. I'm just now starting to get back. So for all of you newcomers coming in, this is Forever Friends Academy. I am Sharla Kornegay. I'm a author, recording artist, and a relationship coach. This is my podcast. I come on every Thursday and Sundays at 8 p.m. The structure of the podcast is that it's a Q&A, but it's a Q&A my version, not the normative way where we just put out questions. You ask me questions and I answer, even though we will have space for that. The Q stands for me starting off with a quote, putting out a question, and then us answering it. Particularly, specifically on Sundays, I present the question in a scenario, a relationship scenario, and we kind of dive into the scenario, and you let me know, whose side do you feel like, I guess, and I don't want to say whose side you're on. I guess the best way, the reasons why I like using the scenarios is because when you're in your relationship situation, right, it's hard sometimes to see your way out of it because we have, right, attachments and connections to the people who we're in relationship in. So we can easily get emotionally compromised. And when we do that, it's easier to react than to respond. So it's great. I try to use these scenarios for us to pop out of ourselves and then become, the coach or the therapist that is listening to the scenario and the issue. And then we can kind of, right, find solutions. And my hope and my prayer is that, when you're navigating your own relationship space, that you can kind of recall some of the things that we've talked about and say, you know what, that kind of reminded me. My situation I'm going through reminds me of this whole scenario when I went onto this podcast that was introduced. And okay, I can step back and kind of look at the situation holistically to be able to find the most optimal solution, right? Because our life, I just had a video that I put out on my some of my socials, and it was a quote that I came across this new year, and I absolutely love it. I think it was the author of it. His name is, well, I don't know if this is just his username, but his username on Twitter is Gary_Black. And I saw it on Jay Shetty's page. But the quote basically said that the best math that we can learn is how to calculate the cost of our current decisions, basically, the cost that our current decisions have on our future. And I was like, oh my goodness. That is such a brilliant quote, and I thought it was very befitting because we have entered a new year, right? And for many people, many of us, the new year is like a reset button. We start new goals. You know, it's a refresher. A lot of people use it as that. But that power, right? That power and our creative authority to be able to curate and create the life that we want is always ever present. It's always there. We don't necessarily have to wait for the new year to do it. And it's most definitely just on principle that even if you have a plan or idea to incorporate something, you know, a new vision is going to require, right, either new habits that you create, new discipline towards it. And so you know that if there was something that you already, right, the here and the now, your day-to-day current decisions are what's going to, right, propel you to be able to fulfill those pursuits. So I think in when we're looking at these scenarios, that's really the angle that I would love for you guys to look at it from, because when we're in our own relationship scenarios, it's hard to come out of looking from our own perspective, our own angle. And I oftentimes will say on this podcast that selfishness will mask itself as love. And so many people be like, but I'm not even a selfish person. Like, I don't understand what you're saying, Sharla. You know, and I say, if you just think of selfishness as only having one angle, only looking at one perspective and one point of view, because we know that love is expansive and God knows all things, right? So in order for us to look for the truth in the midst of so many illusions, right, or so many things that come to us on the daily, we're going to have to, right, be able to see our angle, see the other person's angle, and then see a whole nother angle of being able to make a choice that will hit all the areas, right? And for example, one of the first podcast that I did when I started to come back on is, I always say that my hope when people come here is for me to help them to weed out all the lazy loving, right? No more lazy loving. We don't want to be a lazy lover, you know? And a lazy lover is someone who does not love to their fullest capacity, right? And so if you don't love to your fullest capacity, you don't just withhold love from somebody else, you also don't know who you are. You don't dive in fully of who you are, because we want God's love to fill every area of our life. We want God's love to unlock every area of our life. We don't want just one area, you know, we want all of it. And so, you know, I had given them a question. One of the questions in my past podcast was, if you had done all that you could here and now you've transcended, you've gotten your angel wings, would you, and you were given the opportunity to look back at how the people remembered you. Would you want to be remembered as someone who was loved, someone who was cherished, someone who was respected, or someone who was honored? And, I had said to them on that podcast that I've come to learn that, because my choice was cherished, I would want to say that she was someone who was cherished by the people who she encountered. And the reason why I said that is because I believe that when you're cherished, it can encompass all of those things, right? Being respected, being honored, and being loved. Whereas I know in my life, I can love somebody from a distance. I can love them from afar, but I don't necessarily have to cherish them, right? You can love somebody and not cherish them, but it's very hard to do the other way around. Cherish something that you don't love or doesn't have a connotation or connection somewhere down the line of love. And so in using that example, it's the same thing when I'm presenting these scenarios. I want us to kind of look at it holistically and say, okay, that's his point of view, that's her point of view. But when we look at what both of them are saying, what is the solution that could provide holistically kind of a resolve for both of them based on maybe, the principle or the lesson that's being presented through the circumstance. You know, I always say, and I wrote it in my book, 7 Stages of Love and Relationships, that no matter what you feel about your partner, whatever you feel about your husband or your wife, they are not testing you. They are not loving you. They are not making you feel happy, excited, motivated, you know, more than the tests of life that come through, right? Time and change will, right? We're just the package that God wrapped it in to be able to present, you know, or extract certain lessons and principles. But it's tests of time and change that really are presented in the relationship. And whatever is in that person, in the character, in the nature, or whatever has been poured into or nurtured within that person or about the relationship is what's going to come through. So that's what I'm hoping, that in bringing up these scenarios, it'll afford for all of us to be able to work that muscle, that muscle memory, relationship muscle memory of being able to put selfishness aside, meaning like not just looking from one angle and being attached to whatever resolve you think best fits that one angle, but be able to holistically look at it. What will it serve collectively? I just saw a video today, which I was thinking about doing an episode around because I thought it was so interesting in the way that this particular person articulated it. But I believe I don't even want to say, I think it's Francois, but I'm not sure if that's actually, you know, and I think that's more of like, because I think his name, he has an African name, but in America they call him different. But anyway, he is an MMA fighter, and I saw a very brief snippet of an interview that he was on, and he's very, you know, he's an MMA fighter, so his physique, he's very fit and, you know, very articulate, handsome guy. And so the host was saying, you know, are you thinking about marriage? And he was like, no, not really, because he said, you know, I'm from Cameroon, and the particular village that I'm from, polygamy is what is the norm there, you know, and and of course the host who was doing the interview, you know, once he said polygamy, he kind of he kind of got a little excited, you know, like, oh, that's, you know, thinking of it, I guess, as in a good thing, good way. Like, you know, a lot of men would like to go there to do that. And I love what the gentleman said, because he said, you know, polygamy is not thought of how it is in America, at least in the village that I grew up in. It's more of a matter of responsibility. It's almost that if you have a wealthy man who has all this wealth and he chooses to marry one woman from that community and within a family, they almost see it as an injustice, because it's not like America in a lot of other countries and a lot of places that afford women, right, to have safety nets with education and being able to venture out into having careers so that she can, you know, provide for herself. And a lot of countries still not like that. So a lot of the families will literally try to, you know, see if he would marry more than just that one woman, because he can provide for her, you know, as well as once he provides for her, he's also attached to their family as well. And a lot of times beyond that, if, let's say, you know, and this is also Old Testament biblical as well, whereas if there was a husband and his brother had married a wife, and if he passes away, he is one of the living brothers would be responsible for her as a widow and the children. And mind you, they wouldn't take his, you know, they would keep the last name of the brother who passed, just so that the lineage keeps on. So anyway, he was basically saying that it's about responsibility and community. It's not this fantasy type of thing that, you know, unfortunately in the West, it's kind of seem to be in that way, but it's not even thought of in that way. It's really more to sustain things, and especially in societies and cultures that have more, right, agrarian societies where there's farming and land and things like that. You would have the most wives so that you would not have to outsource, right? The bigger the family, the more workers to till the ground. So it's really more about survival than anything. But I just thought it was just so interesting, right? The two different cultures were represented in that one interview, one from the West and one from his country. And it was looked at totally two different ways. But even if we look at it, right, from just that angle, of course, us believers in Christ, we believe that, one wife. And if we go back even to that conversation that they're having, one is just thinking this is something that's done just for fun and pleasure. The other one is like, no, it's for sustaining the community and the bloodline. So there's one has a greater perspective that is more for the collective rather than their own selfish, right? Fulfillment is the best way I can put it. And so I just thought it was a great snippet to see the dynamic of the conversation, because we can then, put it back into the context of relationships that, whatever resolve we come to when it comes to the situations that are brought up in a relationship, we want to go to the most optimal one, the one that is going to serve the collective, the one that is going to put self-centeredness and selfishness aside and let love, right, reign supreme, and the true nature and the truth reign supreme. So I love the scenario tonight, and I love the feedback that I received. Tiffany, you had amazing answers on that. And just to go back to what she said, so that those of you who came in late know the resolve to it was, one, the wife could definitely not get so consumed or assume and go down a slippery slope of wondering if he has withheld many other things from her, because it's not going to help anything, right? But that they can start here and now from this point on to have a standard in the relationship, or a principle in the relationship, that they are truth is going to be the language, right? We're going to tell the truth. No matter what. One, most importantly, so that we can become best friends with the truth, right? We have to become best friends with the truth. The body, our mind, our physical body, everything has like a muscle memory to it. And I think when it comes to applying certain things to your relationship too, that's it, right? We can't just think that we can just come into it just knowing how. And I think, when we have conversations like this, or we have platforms where we can kind of talk about, right, relationship scenarios, we can talk about relationship topics, it helps us to kind of build the muscle to, at least have some kind of, I guess, point of reference that we can grab towards. These conversations ideally should be happening in the household, but not all of us have that dynamic, right? I definitely didn't grow up in that dynamic, but for the grace of God, I'm able to, be able to have the relationship that I have and have the marriage that I have, and, be able to venture out and offer whatever God has given me, and to be able to articulate to others to help them build relationships that last a lifetime. So I'm grateful for that and honored. And thank you so much, LaToya. Thank you for all of your beautiful comments. Thank you. Welcome if it's your first time. So I love the feedback that we got I think we gave our couple a resolve. Tiffany came in, saved the day. She made a great therapist tonight in letting them know that, okay, truth from now on will be the language that we speak. And just remember, if you take anything away from tonight's podcast, is that you want, the truth to be at the center of your communication, right? You want it to be at the center of your communication when you're in a relationship. And if you feel like you have to withhold something, or you feel like you have to walk on eggshells in that relationship, then that either means that you're lacking faith in the person, and you're also lacking, right, trust and faith within yourself too. Because just like the husband, he wanted to avoid a conflict, so he didn't tell her, but listen, how we have to sharpen each other, right? Iron sharpens iron. So when and I always tell my couples, as a matter of fact, I just told some of my participants, because I have a Forever Friends Academy membership subscription where I do coaching, and it's a little bit more. I have one-on-one clients, but this is group coaching, so they can always present things that they're going through in the moment, and then we talk about it, and it's more specific. So in a nutshell, one of the participants said that they really appreciated when I had presented along the lines of what we're talking about right now, which is to make sure that you're telling the truth, And I told them it's really just when you do that and you say, I'm going to tell the truth, and the truth is going to be the language in our relationship. It's doing is helping you, right? Build the muscle, become best friends with the truth, but also build your ability to resolve conflict in a healthy way before the conflict is presented outside of your relationship, right? Because it's going to be tested. Any relationship that you have has to be tested. And it has to be tested because that's how you build your capacity to love and to grow with one another. And if it's not tested, if you don't create an environment where you both can kind of resolve conflicts, in a healthy way, then when those tests come, right, from other people and other areas of life, and the unpredictable, swerves, curveballs that life throws all of us comes, then we won't, we'll be hit, and the idea is that when those storms come, you're able to stand together through it all, stronger than, how you were before. So, absolutely. So, I want to leave a moment. I see some new people coming in. But I want to leave a moment if you guys have any questions outside of tonight's topic. Before I get off, I always leave an opportunity that if you have any kind of relationship type of question, I'll do my best to answer it before I come off the last 15 minutes that we're here together. But I appreciate all of you guys, newcomers coming in, Latoya, Wyatt. I appreciate you guys coming in, and thank you for all of your beautiful comments. I appreciate it. If you want to, dive in a little bit deeper, and get more one-on-one, because I do group coaching as well as I have my private clientele. If you're on YouTube, the link will be in the subscription. I don't go through Patreon or some of the other membership programs. I go through Buy Me a Coffee. It's buymeacoffee.com/Sharla Kornegay. You can check out their snippets of other topics, relationship topics that I've provided. There's memberships on many different levels. So you can just click on that link. If you're on IG, click the link in my bio. And of course, Facebook is in the description as well. All right. So I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions that pertain to relationships. I don't think so. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you, Latoya. Yep, I'm on here every Thursday and Sundays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So feel free, absolutely join. And even if you are catching the replay, please flood my feed and let me know in the comment section below what questions, what topics would you like me to talk about, to hopefully, that's my aim. I need to know what the needs of the people are, and my aim is just to meet the needs, because I'm a firm believer. I'm an advocate of love, and I believe that there are so many people who have lost their hope in love and have lost hope in thinking that relationships that last a lifetime don't exist anymore. But I don't believe that to be true. And even if you have that type of attitude, we can, if that's the truth and that's the culture of modern society today, one of the ways we can kind of change that is to do what we're doing right now, which is to actually talk about it and dissect some of the relationship concepts and principles that we could be using. All right. All right, so I don't see any. Hey, April, thank you for tuning in, love. You made my night. Thank you. Absolutely. I so appreciate you. And Tiffany, love, thank you for popping in. But yeah, so I think I don't see any relationship questions. So we're going to end it out, and I will see you guys this Thursday. All right, it has been my pleasure as always to be on here with you guys. So I appreciate you. All right, but until next time, always remember to live to love freely. Bye.